Hi, Edward. Welcome to the NTM Growth Marketing Podcast. I'm excited to be speaking with you today.
Andrew, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you.
We had a little bit of a debrief. Love getting to know you in that conversation. I'm sure all of our listeners are going to appreciate your marketing knowledge as well. But let's just start off and hear a little bit more about your organization and what is your role at the company.
Yeah, so IMS is a managed service provider, primarily serving the Carolinas up through the Midwest, up to Cincinnati, Ohio is our reach. We are a South Carolina-based company with that kind of reach, and our pillars of support for our clients today is really around cyber readiness. Obviously, cloud migrations are a part of that. Security wrappers around cloud migrations from typical on-prem hybrid solutions. And then we get into what we would say is the Microsoft 365 adoption and how to help clients probably save money with their licensing, make sure they're the right licensing tier, and then making sure that overall that we have a support services that wraps all of that with our highly trained and certified engineers.
And what is your role at the company?
So I am recently, and I say recently over the last 2 years, have moved from a technical support role into director of sales and marketing for the company. I like to say that I'm probably like watching a farmer's commercial. I, I know a little bit because I've seen a little bit, and so I've now sort of had my career transition, and this has been an incredible journey for me just in the, like I said, past 2 years.
What does the day in the life of Edward look like? So I say that because having the title of director of sales and marketing, you're playing kind of both. You're almost is like you're playing offense and defense. You're a two-way player out there. So tell us a little bit more about just what the day in the life of Edward looks like having that dual title.
Yeah, man, isn't that a great analogy for football? Even though now we're in the baseball season, yeah, it's an Iron Man game. Sales isn't marketing, marketing isn't
Right.
sales. So, and coming from an operations background, I probably overanalyze things a little too much because it's all metric based for me, and I've been sort of coached and encouraged to keep metrics to the ones that matter most. But my day in the life right now is a lot of working with our direct sales team on business development, on bringing credibility to the market space, and really trying to help small and medium-sized companies under, understand really why are they trying to secure their business. And when we talk about the how, honestly, they don't care that much. They want to know what we're going to do and why are we doing it more than anything else. And that's been my sort of aha moment over the last 2 years. So my life is really trying to put things out of non-technical terms into business terms that the C-suite, the business owners, and the partners understand and appreciate.
Do you see yourself naturally gravitating more towards the marketing or sales side?
Sales for sure.
Mhm.
Marketing and marketing ROI is really difficult for me.
Mhm.
There's not always a one to correlation that I spend a dollar in Google Ads for an
Mhm.
example, and then I'm gonna get $2 out of it.
Mhm.
I have not been able to solve that riddle, and so I'm always in a learning mode. And I think that has been the biggest challenge. What I can equate to on the sales side is a really structured, repeatable process that we can measure through the funnel, if you would,
Mhm.
once we're starting to move marketing qualified leads, say, into sales qualified leads.
Mhm.
That seems a little more natural for me to be able to follow that progression.
Data attribution has been a major topic in the digital marketing landscape the
Mm.
last few years. So you're not alone on that. But speaking of marketing, I'd love to hear, even though, there might be some attribution concerns figuring out that direct ROI, what are some marketing strategies that you've been deploying that you feel confident in that are helping to fuel new business or whatever those success metrics might look like?
Andrew, it's a great question. And again, I'm still on that upward climb. I like to tell people it's like climbing Mount Everest. It's hard, but I'm enjoying the view and I'm learning a lot. But I think it's this is that I, I think today in marketing, we have to really understand the quantity of the leads versus the quality of the leads.
Mhm.
And so, for example, you can drive a lot of traffic to your website. That may be a great vanity metric, but if they're not converting, then the
Mhm.
question is why? Is it that you're getting the wrong people coming to your site, or do you have strong calls to action? And more importantly, is the messaging in line with what your company does best? And sometimes it's a bunch of A/B testing, right? And that is the biggest challenge because you honestly don't really always know 100% certain that this is going to work and it's going to resonate with your ideal client.
I'd love to hear your thoughts of something innovative you feel like you're bringing to the organization, whether that's marketing or sales with that dual title. Would love for you
Mm.
to have a little bit of a humble brag on Edward. What's something innovative you feel like you're bringing to the company?
Well, I don't think it's me. I get to work with a lot of smart people, and I think we challenge each other because think about it this way: as a professional managed services provider, we've got a lot of certifications with major players like Microsoft, Cisco, all the security companies that we bring to the table. And so our certified engineers have all of the technical know-how from the implementation to support. The challenge is taking that and flipping that script into something that resonates with a business owner.
Mhm.
And I'll give you the best example of something we're dealing with right now. Everybody talks about cybersecurity. The thing that I see everybody talking about is how you do it,
Mhm.
and it gets really technical really quick. And honestly, I can go into a meeting or into a networking event and I can sort of say that and I can watch people's eyes glaze over. They literally just check out within 5 seconds. So, what I think I'm learning through this process is technically we know why we're doing what we're doing, but to flip that into something that engages somebody to say, Edward, tell me more. This is what we're working on is how do we separate and differentiate ourselves from not talking tech at all times.
Right.
Um, and it's harder than it seems sometimes, Andrew. I'll just tell you. it's,
It's a very common issue that tech businesses experience of how do you take something that's so technical and that old saying of how do you communicate that in a way that a fourth grader could understand. Do you see as well in the cybersecurity space, a lot of the marketing is extremely fear-based and that might turn people off to a discussion?
yes. And we try to guard ourselves against that. I get it. And that is the reality, right? It's
Mhm.
like you can
It's
put
a
it in your
scary world.
personal. Yeah. I mean, you can put it in your personal life. If you don't lock the doors to your house, do you think somebody's going to break in? It's not a question of if, it's just when, right?
Mhm.
So when it comes to your business, what we're seeing is that people don't know what their blind spots are.
Mhm.
And they could care less about the technology that uncovers the blind spots. They just need to know what they are. And then the question is now, how do you start to address that? And which ones do you prioritize? I mean, obviously, some cyber criminals sort of have their preferred angle of attack, and it's not always ransomware, right? They
Mhm.
just want to be major disruptors. Maybe they're fund transfer, hacks, things like that. So I think what we're trying to do is bring analytics and bring a story to the table that says, here's probably the 4 or 5 threat vectors that we see most often. Which ones of these have the most likelihood of creating a major interruption to your business to the point that it's not just your company, it's your clients, it's your reputation. And how do we protect against that? We take that personally. We try to support our clients and help them grow, become more efficient and effective. There's nothing worse than to know there's cyber criminals out there that are trying just to do the opposite of that.
Mhm.
So you're 100% right. We don't want to use the FUD factor and all those questions, but you don't have to look beside any other thing on a Google search about how many hacks are occurring by the second.
Right.
And they're not. Listen, let's be honest, they're not all U.S. based. Very few are. So
Right.
these are bad actors that are across the oceans, and we have to be aware of that, and we have to protect ourselves.
How has AI impacted your role as a professional?
Um, I would say it was a little sluggish at first because one thing I found out, it's like the internet, half the stuff out there is inaccurate. So
What
you
are you
have
referring to
to,
when ChatGPT got announced
yes,
a few years ago? Okay.
yeah, yeah. You have to really almost sort of immerse yourself a little bit into becoming a better prompt engineer.
Mhm.
So I've learned that you don't ask it single layered questions. They have to be really deep. You almost have to tell the story to get the story back. And then here's one thing that I would share is I make sure anything I put through any platform, whether it's Gemini, Claude, ChatGPT, pick your favorite one, is always make sure that I ask for the source data of anything it gives me back that's empirical data. And if
Interesting.
I can't validate it, then I will not use that as the gospel.
So are you using the LLMs for research, kind of a thought partner? Or are you using it for copywriting? What would you say the main function is for you?
Well, I think it's both. I mean, first of all, we are using AI tools in terms of our lead generation.
Mhm,
Who's our target customer profiles? What are they looking for? And then we can use that for list building, right?
mhm.
So that's just sort of how we go to market in each of the areas that we operate. So that's first. But once we get that, then we start looking at how can we be creative using AI to make sure that we're messaging correctly to the buying persona.
Mhm.
And these are typically, like I said, C-suite individuals, CFO, COO, CIO, and then up to CEO, partners, and probably just single business owners. And so we've learned that the messaging and how you ask these prompts is really tailored to that buying persona, and we try to just test that
Mhm.
and make sure that it's landing the way that we want it to. So that's part of our go-to-market strategy.
So my last question today, Edward, is still related to AI. You shared some AI LLMs that you're using, ChatGPT. I think you said Claude. Maybe Gemini was the other one you threw in there.
Yep.
Might be
Yep.
misspeaking. Are there any other AI tools that you found effective, whether that's another LLM you haven't run through, or maybe just a standalone AI software that you're using for some of those lead gen efforts that you really enjoy?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's a great color wheel. If I can put my hands on it quickly, I'll allow you to maybe share it with your audience. But it really sort of details out a normal business's spin wheel, if you would.
So you
So,
have a whole
sales.
tech stack list of all the AI at your
Yeah,
company?
it's insane. I mean, if you took any business workflow and you were to just put a flywheel to it,
Mhm.
um, pick one, operations. There's probably 20 different AI tools for just operations only, and
And
then
another 20
multiply that.
coming out by the weekend.
Yeah. And oh, by the way, every one of them has a free trial that then turns into subscription. And
Right.
then now you've got 20 AI tools running that are costing you anywhere from, 10, 15 to $20+ a month for the subscription, depending on how you're deploying it. It's maddening, absolutely
Mhm.
maddening. So what we do, Andrew, is we really try to focus on marketing in our sales motion, if you would, around things that message more correctly to how our clients see us and doing business with them. So
Mhm.
we input a lot of testimonials and we try to make sure that that gets embedded into our messaging so that we have social proof along with our skill set capabilities. But in the day is wanting to make sure that our audience understands why they would want to do business with IMS.
I do have a follow-up question to that. It actually relates to a recent conversation I had with a marketing executive, and she was sharing how uh, one of her pain points is she just needs someone to just come across their tech stack and evaluate how they can start implementing AI for more efficiency across their marketing department. What
Mm.
advice would you have for that marketing executive who may be even like ground zero on their AI usage at the business? Where do they start at figuring out where AI can come into play? We just kind of joked about there's 20 different tools you could use and there'll be another 20 coming out by Sunday as well.
Yeah, man, that's a lot to unpack. Andrew, I would say this. We are constantly evaluating what works best for us and what's resonating. I would say that if you're just going to focus solely on how you're marketing your company, right? Use the AI tools that are out there, some of which you could absolutely start with that are not just, marketing's labeled, if you would, that really allows a company to focus on their target customer profile.
Mhm.
How do they like to be messaged to? What are their buying triggers? Where do you find some of these folks?
Mhm.
Content delivery is one thing, but content adoption and consumption is another. For example, some businesses don't even plug into Facebook. They're all either LinkedIn
Right.
or their YouTube. They may even throw some TikTok in there just for added engagement. So I think when companies are looking at using AI as a marketing approach is sort of lay out where you feel your voice is most comfortable, because here's the challenge. You've got to take this marketing data and now give it to sales.
Mhm.
Sales needs to be able to put it in their voice and without missing the mark. So messaging is absolutely 100% critical in all of this. And it's not always about the medium per se.
So, Edward, to wrap us up, can you share best ways to follow up with you and your organization?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So, imssolutionsgroup.com is our website address. We tried to pick the longest URL we could find. So, I think we get a check mark for that. We do have our standard info at IMS Solutions Group and sales at imssolutionsgroup.com as ways to reach out. And I think the idea is really trying to make sure that we're just having credible conversations with clients. That's what we're
Mhm.
after.
Perfect. Thank you for your time today, Edward.
Andrew, thank you, sir. Appreciate being here with you.
Before we jump into our next guest, we want to take a moment to tell you about our marketing mastermind cohort, No Typical Marketers. If you are a marketing executive looking to connect with like-minded professionals, this is the space for you. It's more than just a Discord group. It's your exclusive ticket to monthly roundtable meetings where we have group discussions about advanced marketing strategies, share insights, and solve real world challenges like implementing AI agents into your marketing. Membership is exclusive and by application only. If you're ready to take your marketing game to the next level, apply now using the link in the description below. We can't wait to see you there. Now, back to the episode. Hi, Pamela. Welcome to the NTM Growth Marketing Podcast. I am excited to be speaking with you today.
Andrew, thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure to be with you today. Thanks.
Pamela, to kick us off, tell us a little bit more about your company. What is your role at the organization?
I'm the Marcom director at OnPath Testing. OnPath is about 20 years old. It's a QA testing service that over time has and the QA testing for software projects for SDLCs. And over time, OnPath has moved into QA testing also for security, for digital accessibility, and also into a QA ops model, which really integrates with the software development lifecycle and becomes a partner. I don't want to unpack the whole QA ops model with you right now because I imagine it'll put about 85% of your audience to sleep. But yeah, I'm working in tech and I'm working with a software testing service. Our founder is interesting. He spends, for the past 20 years, he spent half his year in India and half his year in the United States. And the thing that's interesting about him is that long before it became a thing, he built a 100% remote organization long before the pandemic, and also perfected and mastered managing offshore relationships with onshore management. So I think of it, he's unconsciously competent with that, which is, he instinctively and intuitively at this point navigates the complexity of the cultural differences and communication breakdowns and where the pitfalls are.
I want to touch base before we get into our first question of some of your background in marketing. And I told you before we hit record, let's put a bookmark in that because this is some great content. And you were sharing how you started in editorial world and you've seen just so many changes. When I was interpreting it, you've seen so many changes in marketing over the years. What was going on back then and why did you shift from editorial to content marketing?
Well, it's interesting. It's an interesting story. For various reasons, I had an undergrad degree in fine art, which that and $15 will get you a cup of coffee these days. And there were other things that happened. I got the opportunity to go to journalism school and I did a graduate program in journalism combined with visual communication. After grad school, I went into the newspaper business. I started out as a page designer and then I became a beat reporter. And then I morphed weirdly into becoming editor-in-chief of a glossy magazine dedicated to the business of higher education. I was in Florida at the time. I'm from Colorado. I really wanted to get home. I really wanted to get home. And I took a job as a small town newspaper editor in the Four Corners region of Colorado. And it was, I don't know how many of your viewers will remember Northern Exposure. It's being revived. It was a series sitcom about a young doctor who got sent to Alaska, a small town in Alaska. Sorry, Siri is talking. And it was very much like that. It was a town of about 700 people. I was surrounded by Native American reservations. It was this really crazy melange of old cattle ranchers and LGBTQ communities that had sort of set up shop down there. But it was one of the greatest experiences of my
Mhm.
life. Meanwhile, my father, who was a retired pharmacist, had been introduced to a probiotic type product that had been developed in by the Soviets to protect the Army from biowarfare agents. And it was derived from a strain of probiotic. And he spent the next 2 years connecting with the manufacturers in St. Petersburg, bringing the product back, reverse engineering it so it could be manufactured in the United States. And then he met and married the microbiologist who had been the principal investigator for the Soviets
Mhm.
and came back with her. And I was down in the Southwest, and he reached out and said, I'm married and I never expected to get remarried, and I want to have a life. So either I'd like you to consider coming and running this business, or I'm going to sell it. I decided to go and run the business because the product was so unique and so remarkable as a completely safe, non-toxic immune support product derived from probiotics. And I spent 5 years with him growing that business. Um, And it was at that moment that I joined the business that the Google algorithms changed. And it was the moment when people could no longer use the search engine result pages for just free advertising. Couldn't do it anymore. Content marketing was born overnight, and I built the business based on building a content marketing program and working with one of the early SEO
Mhm.
people who had responded really quickly. Um, and
I love
so
hearing these stories. I'm thinking
do
back
you?
to his name is Gary Vaynerchuk. If you've run into him in the marketing space, and he had this company called Wine Library TV, and he talks about just he was the first person to bid on the word wine on the internet, something like that, and talking about just what his numbers were, and never again in the history of mankind will you see those numbers on Google. So it's
Nope. It was
uh,
the search engine result pages were wide open real estate at that
yeah.
moment. And it was a very interesting time because there was also heavy FDA regulatory stuff happening
Mhm.
with people like us, nutritional supplements, things like that. So the FDA was really, the Federal Drug Administration was really cracking down to what was happening. At this point, the field is so vast, it would be very difficult for them to catch everybody, and a lot
Mhm.
of stuff slips through the cracks. But then, and it wasn't that long ago, at
Well,
least.
Pamela, I'd love to hear though, fast forwarding now to 2025, the internet is crowded. Everyone's on Facebook. My dad still, I'm sorry, Dad, I'm calling you out for this. He still goes to google.com to search for facebook.com. He doesn't understand the URL. I was just on a screen share with him the other day and was trying to explain to him what a URL is. So I say this to say the internet has changed a lot since those, wild west days of Google. What is the
Yeah.
type of marketing campaign initiative you're working on now that you're finding to be fruitful?
You know, I have shifted. As you just said in your words, the internet is a really crowded place now.
Mhm.
And as marketers, depending on which area of marketing you're in, I haven't been in CPGs or direct to consumers for a while. Our QA testing is really B2B, and our audience, our personas are really well insulated people.
Mhm.
So that's what I'm thinking about now. Um, I have moved from a whole lot of putting a lot, you have to have a presence in social media. There's certain things you have to do. You got to crank out your newsletter. You got to grow contacts and subscribers and things like that. But I am starting to understand and believe that in a position like mine, B2B tech, I've got to build a brand around my CEO. I've got
So
to
even in
get
B2B tech, where it's a very techy product, you want to do kind of influencer, CEO, thought leadership.
thought leadership. I've got to get him in a place where he can be seen
Mhm.
and connected with. And I believe it's going to be podcasting and influencer type
Mhm.
connection. So
I
I'm
just had
really
a
focused on branding my CEO. I've just done a rebrand for the business. Now I want to brand my CEO.
right before this call, I was talking to a marketing executive about Substack,
Mhm.
and he started to experiment that with himself. I don't have any experience with Substack. Have you looked into Substack at all?
I've done some work with Substack, and I've done some content specifically for OnPath with Substack.
Tell
Um,
us your thoughts because you are the first person ever on our podcast to share their thoughts on Substack. So this is a wild, wild west right here. What are
It
your thoughts on
is,
Substack?
but
No
there
one's
are so
commented on
many
this.
different, I need to catch up on all the implications and possibilities for Substack because now there are all these different iterations. It looks like people are podcasting through Substack. Am I
Mhm.
wrong? There's lots of stuff going on Substack, and I'm very confused by it. Um, and I think it's great. I think it may be great if you can figure out how to navigate it
Mhm.
for thought leadership. But
That's where I see it coming
I
from
don't quite understand if my audience is plugged into Substack. I don't know if my
Mhm.
personas, if it's part of their journey,
Got it.
Substack.
Well, Pamela, I would love for you to take a moment. If you were going to have a humble brag on yourself, what is a area of marketing you feel like you bring a lot of innovation to? What's innovative about your approach to marketing?
I don't know, Andrew, I really don't know if it's innovative, but I think it is a fundamental law that will not change,
Hmm.
which is regardless of how big of a tech stack you build or how often you swap out its components, that great marketing comes down to great storytelling.
Mhm. The funny
And
thing about most people's answer to this question is something around I just focus on the fundamentals. I'm not trying to find the latest hack on TikTok or the, whatever it is. That it's a very common answer people give.
well, I mean, I will, as tough as it was being a beat journalist, a small town newspaper editor, somebody said, "Oh, small town newspapers, that's like military intelligence. It's a contradiction in terms." Anyway, small town journalism. Anyway, as tough as all that stuff was, I will forever be indebted to the rigor of the discipline of becoming a storyteller.
Mhm.
And that everything to me comes back to great storytelling.
Love it.
So I have been fortunate that I had the training and experience to become a solid storyteller. The tech stacks come and go, but I will say I have seen organizations who are more concerned about their tech stack, their focus,
Mhm.
their energy and attention is going way more into their tech stack than into the creative aspect of storytelling.
Mhm.
And I've also seen this like incredible craving for templates and structures that will
Mhm.
work consistently. And it gives me heartburn because I can find my way outside of a template or need exceptions to the template usually within an hour of trying to work with it
Mhm.
across the board. So it's just maybe it's a philosophical issue. I don't know, a fundamental philosophical difference. I don't know. And if you want to lead into AI, now is your perfect time to seg.
That is exactly what was on my mind. How has AI impacted your role as a marketer?
I think I've been kind of in the position of a lot of marketers where it's like, oh, I don't know. Let's wait and see. Is this
Mhm.
gonna eliminate us? And I think now we're starting to see that no, it's not going to eliminate us.
Did
AI,
you, when the first ChatGPT gossip started arising, where I was more of a let's just wait and see. I didn't know if it was a trend. Were you in that category as well?
yes, I was in that
Mhm.
category. But we'd fool around. The COO I was working with at the time who has moved on, my greatest manager I ever had, he and I would play with it. We would, I would create copy for different like LinkedIn posts and things like that. And we'd say, can you do this copy in the voice of Jack Kerouac?
Mhm.
Right. As if Jack Kerouac was talking about SDLC QA testing, things like that. We get all kinds of weird, crazy stuff. So that was really fun to play with. Um, but that was a year ago.
Yeah.
Everything has changed. Um, One of the great values I see coming down the road with Chat GPT for someone like an interviewer, and I often interview subject matter experts or people I go have ghost written for in the past, CEOs and C-suite members, is taking a raw transcript and turning it into an outline.
Hmm.
That is huge, a
Hmm.
huge time savings for me. Just building an outline, can go out and gather research notes about a topic, pull stuff from Reddit, that kind of thing, and just have this big mess of notes that has no stitching together and no order and drop it into Chat GPT. It's got to have the right prompting, and it may take more than one try, but it'll give me back an outline.
Hmm.
You can't go into it mindlessly. Because it all comes down. It all comes. Well, I remember when I was learning video editing, the video editors would say garbage in, garbage out. ChatGPT, garbage in, garbage out. You have to be thoughtful,
Hmm.
and use critical thinking
Hmm.
with your prompting. But I mean, taking a campaign and then laying out all the elements of it, and working with ChatGPT to work out things like calendar timing and
Hmm.
even a content calendar.
Hmm. Have you
Train.
looked into AI agents to start implementing any of this for you?
I have fooled around with ChatGPT to give me a content calendar structure for say 6 months,
Hmm.
and I give it information. I give it my topics that I want to be working with, and I ask it to do like a progression, a developmental progression of the topics rather than just random topics. I want them to have kind of a sequence,
Hmm.
and it'll do that for me. I have to give it information. I have to think through it myself.
Right.
But in terms of building the calendar itself, once I get to something that's reasonable, I can generally do it with a few tweaks. That's a lot of administrative stuff
Hmm.
that content marketers have to deal with.
Right. That you think AI agents could help to facilitate?
Absolutely. It's administrative stuff.
Hmm.
And I'm starting to play with it to pull data out of places like Google Console, places
Hmm.
like just pull raw data and see what it does with it in terms of data analysis and see what kind of
Hmm.
conclusions it comes to. Because, content people, content managers, content directors are expected to be data analysts as well. And we want to
Hmm.
be data driven, but it's not there are people who are wonderful unicorns who can work creatively and also work their way through data and
Hmm.
reporting and KPIs and all that kind of stuff. I'm not one of those people. I depend on tools.
Hmm.
It's it's a great asset for someone like me who wants to make determinations about future content based on
Hmm.
existing data. ChatGPT can turn into my left arm.
Well, Pamela, for my last question today, we've been talking about ChatGPT.
Mhm.
Are there any other types of AI tools, whether it's another LLM or a standalone software, that you've been going back to on a regular basis to use?
I haven't. I have been doing a thing, and I meant to bring my list of tools that I've been exploring with me, and I'm sorry, I apologize that I didn't. Um, I'm looking at different tools, looking at their capacities. I did look at one content development tool, and the content had that whiff of,
Hmm.
the stuff that it turned out. There's a whiff. There's something you can spot it. You can kind
Hmm.
of sense it. And I wouldn't have used it. I'm watching to see what's going to come. One of the issues, and when I talk about tech stacks, this plays into it. if I spent as much time as the industry would like me to exploring different platforms, tools, etc., I wouldn't have time to market.
You
You
know,
know,
I should have
and
dove deeper. I interviewed a guy the other day. His name's Spencer. So Spencer, if you happen to be listening to this, I should have asked you more questions. He tries out a new AI tool a day. That's one of his
God
goals.
bless them. Good for him. Cool. Maybe I should be
Yeah.
doing that.
I
See
should have
if,
asked him
if I
what's he
can.
doing to be efficient with that.
Well, I'll be watching for that was an interview you did?
Earlier this week, I interviewed Spencer and he shared that.
Uh, I'm going to have to go and look at Spencer's interview. I would like more time to explore.
Mhm,
Um, I'm working in tech, and my CEO likes to switch up our stack on a regular basis,
mhm,
and it's disruptive, and I've had to learn to get used to it in all of my roles. Okay, we're
mhm.
switching the stack, we're going from this to that. You have to learn a new platform, on and on and on. But it would be great. It's a great practice. I still am holding back just a little bit because those tools are changing so quickly.
Right.
So I really want to just keep doing industry listening before I start investing myself and my time into those tools and figuring them out and seeing, and also hearing from other marketers.
Yeah, if we put this on kind of the crossing the chasm curve, if you know of
Yeah.
that terminology, kind of you're not an early adopter, you're
Yep.
kind of a little bit over here. So you wait to see, what's working, what's not, versus feeling like you're an early adopter and you have to try out every new AI tool that comes out every single day. Like as you were talking about with your chat GPT, you wait and see a little bit. Then my dad is like all the way over here where he finally joined Facebook like 20 years after it was invented. So it's
Yeah.
good to know kind of where you fall on that line and why you adopt new tech or
Well,
not.
I want to hear what was that guy's name? Who's just,
Spencer was
I
his
want to
name.
hear what Spencer says. I
Okay.
want to,
He's for
I want
sure
to
an
hear,
early adopter.
I always read product reviews before I buy. So I want to hear what early adapters have to say. Yeah.
Well,
Marketers.
Pamela, to wrap us up today, can you share best ways to follow up with you and your organization?
Pamela at onpathtesting.com.
Perfect.
Best way to follow up. We're on LinkedIn, on path testing.
Perfect, Pamela.
And
Thank you for
I'm
your time
LinkedIn.
today.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to meet you, Andrew.